We've all heard that phrase, right? I didn't know. It can be, well, pretty frustrating. But what if I told you that that phrase is almost never about one person's mistake? What if it's actually a massive clue that a bigger system is failing? In this explainer, we're going to break down exactly why that is and how a simple fix can literally change everything.
Yep, there it is. But I didn't know that. It's the phrase that stops a project dead in its tracks, derails a plan, or starts a totally unnecessary argument. But here's a thought. What if the person saying it isn't the problem at all?
So, this is the core idea we're going to unpack. Most of the time, this isn't about someone being difficult or deliberately ignoring the rules. It's all about how those rules were communicated in the first place. The real issue isn't the person, it's the system.
To really see this in action, let's step into a world that's all about high stakes and high emotions: weddings. By looking at the common conflicts that pop up during wedding planning, we can get right to the root of these disputes, a root cause that honestly applies to just about any business out there.
Okay, so every wedding venue has rules, and they have them for really good reasons. To protect the building, to make sure everyone is safe, to stop vendors from making mistakes. The rules themselves, they're never the problem.
The real issue is something we can call information absorption failure. Just picture it. You pour water onto a rock. The water is there, right? The information has been provided, but it just runs right off. It doesn't sink in. That's what happens when your communication structure is broken.
So where does this breakdown actually happen? Well, let's take a look at the traditional ways we all share information, and you'll see how they're almost perfectly designed to create these exact kinds of misunderstandings.
Oh yeah, here are the usual suspects. That verbal walkthrough you gave them, totally forgotten a week later. That 20 PDF guide you sent over, let's be honest, they skimmed it at best. The contract, they just looked for the price and the signature line. And that one critical detail in that super long email chain, it is gone, buried forever. Every single one of these is a potential landmine.
And we're not talking about minor details here. This stuff leads to real serious conflicts over things like when vendors can set up, noise curfews, rules about candles, even who's responsible for cleanup. These are the very things that can turn a perfect day into an absolute nightmare.
So you might be thinking, okay, the solution is easy. I'll just send more information. I'll be extra thorough, right? Well, that way of thinking leads you right into what's called the accessibility trap. It seems counterintuitive, but this is exactly why more information is almost never the answer.
And here's why. Volume does not equal clarity. Piling on more documents and writing longer emails doesn't actually help anyone. It just creates static. It creates noise, making it even harder for people to find the important signal.
And this gets to the absolute heart of it. The information, the rule about candles, the vendor setup time, it almost always exists somewhere. The problem isn't a lack of information, it's a lack of accessibility. The client can't find the answer they need right at the moment they need it without basically becoming an archaeologist, digging through old files and emails.
And this isn't just a headache for the client. For the business, our wedding venue, for example, the operational risks are huge. Your staff wastes tons of time repeating the same things over and over. Different team members give slightly different answers, which just creates confusion. Disputes devolve into a he said, she said mess. And ultimately, your professionalism gets questioned, even when you've done everything right. Okay, so we've established that the old methods are failing us, and just throwing more information at the problem actually makes things worse. So, what's the answer? What actually works?
The solution isn't about more information. It's about building a smarter system. The answer is to create a single, centralized hub where all the crucial details live.
So what does a smart system look like? It's actually pretty simple. All the information is neatly categorized, not just buried in some massive document. It's mobile-friendly, so you can pull up an answer on your phone in like 2 seconds. It's available 24/7, not just when your office is open. And this is key. It's tailored to the specific event, which removes all the guesswork and ambiguity. The shift this creates is just huge. Just compare these two responses. The old way sounds so defensive. We mentioned that in the contract. The new way is helpful. It's professional. Oh, you can find that in your event guidelines. They're always accessible in your portal. One of those creates conflict, the other one builds trust.
And really, it all boils down to a new philosophy. Professional venues don't rely on buried clauses in a contract to cover themselves.
They rely on structured communication to help their clients succeed. It's a total shift from being defensive to being proactive.
So, what really happens when you make this shift? Well, the short answer is clarity changes everything. Let's look at the powerful long-term benefits you get when you adopt structured communication.
The results are pretty transformative. Misunderstandings basically vanish. Client expectations are perfectly aligned with what you actually deliver. Your team stops having the same conversations over and over again. The emotional tension just goes way down. Event days run smoother, and accountability is crystal clear for everyone. No more finger-pointing.
Now, let's think about scale for a second. A single venue might host, 8 to 12 unique events every single month? Just imagine the sheer volume of repeated questions and potential miscommunications that represents. Trying to handle all of that manually is basically impossible, which brings us to a critical point about growth. Answering every question one-on-one, over and over again, that just doesn't scale. You can't hire enough people to fix a broken communications process. But systems scale perfectly. A well-built system delivers that same clarity and consistency whether you have one client or 1,000.
So if you take just one thing away from all of this, let it be this. The problem is never the rules, it's never the policies. The problem is, and always has been, unstructured communication.
And that brings us to our final thought. If creating clarity through a structured system can change everything in a world as complex as planning a wedding, where else is unstructured communication causing friction and misunderstanding in your work, or even in the rest of your life?